Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm super excited you can be here because today we're talking about one of my favorite topics ever, which is getting your credit fixed the right way and doing it the legal way where you can actually win. I think maybe a little bit of cash for actually the things that you're going through. This is basically about how to fight for fair credit. So we're going to talk about how consumers can actually win against false reporting. Look, you're going to be blown away at what you're going to discover today in learning that a lot of things that are on your credit report that are negative shouldn't be there legally to begin with. And I know I talk to a lot of people that say, hey, look, this thing really happened, but it doesn't matter if the thing really happened or not. It matters if the actual credit issuer, if the bureaus are compliant to the law and reporting it the way that is required to be reported. And I can give you a little hint, like 80% of the time, from my own personal experience, they're not reported as they're required to be reported. So we're going to fix that right today. We are going to make sure that we are going to get you the education on how to fight for fair credit. And with us is two of the foremost experts on this. And this is Hugo Blankingship. I'm going to introduce him. The first, Hugo Blankingship III, is a highly respected attorney based in Washington, D.C., specializing in identity theft and false credit reporting issues. With over 30 years of experience, he has built a strong reputation for advocating on behalf of consumers who are struggling with inaccurate credit information. And his mission is to help clients get incorrect data removed from their credit reports, allowing them to move forward with their financial lives. So he's actually a graduate of the University of Virginia and the Marshall-Wythe School of Law at the College of William and Mary. Now, Hugo began his career as a law clerk to the Honorable Albert V. Bryan Jr., former Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia. And that foundation basically shaped his career and led him to become a passionate consumer rights advocate. Now, we also have Thomas Christiano. Now, Thomas, in 2019, 14.4 million Americans became victims of identity theft, including residents of Fairfax County and the surrounding areas. And cybercriminals have been finding all kinds of new ways to exploit consumers and steal their personal information. And this is exactly what he fights to be able to solve. So Thomas Christiano has a BA from the University of Virginia and a JD from the Marshall-Wythe School of Law and the College of William and Mary. Now, Mr. Christiano has handled numerous consumer protection cases and specializes in cases involving inaccurate credit reporting under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. He has reviewed the credit reporting procedure process from the major credit reporting agencies and the dispute investigation procedures of many of the banks who have furnished inaccurate credit information. So as an experienced credit report lawyer, he can identify the actual damages associated with credit report problems, including emotional distress damages, the loss of employment opportunities, inability to obtain a mortgage, and loss of use of credit. Now, Mr. Christiano also publishes a blog at yourfaircreditlawyer.now.com, which is an excellent informational source on the subject. And he also has decades of experience helping clients who have been the victim of credit fraud and identity theft. Hey, gentlemen, thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us, Ty.
Yeah, so let me ask you, how common is it that people have inaccurate information on their credit reports?
I think there's a lot of it. I mean, some of it is not terribly significant that's going to impact your score all that much, but people who are the victim of identity theft or have a inaccurate trade line that says maybe it's 30, 60 days late, that's inaccurate is something that's going to be very impactful for a consumer.
What are some of the typical derogatory items that you see that are inaccurate on credit reports?
The ones that we deal with primarily are the more serious ones involving identity theft. So somebody has opened up credit in your name using your social and your date of birth. They've got your information, they open up accounts, and of course they're never going to pay them. And now next thing you know, you've got 2 or 3 fraudulent accounts on your credit report and your score is dropped by 150, 200 points.
And I've seen historically in identity theft cases that a lot of it isn't somebody stealing identity, but a lot of it is mismatched data from a family member, for example, sometimes appearing on somebody's report. So when you're dealing with somebody that's coming to you for identity theft, or they've tried to resolve it, haven't been able to, how often is it that their identity is truly stolen versus information that's just cross-matched on their credit report from somebody with a similar name, similar social?
Well, sure. It can happen that way where there's mismatched information. In fact, 2 of our leading cases, the Sloan v. Equifax case and the Robinson v. Equifax case, were identity theft cases that crossed over into mixed merge credit files that you spoke of. Miss Sloan had a baby and when she went to the hospital, it just so happened that one of the administrative clerks that was in the back office shared a common name. Her name was Shabana Sloan. So she also had a previous history of stealing identity. So she stole our client's identity. And then at some point, Equifax not only allowed her to use our client's good credit, but they switched the identity thief's credit with our client's credit. And it was a terrible, terrible case of mixed merge and identity theft. So there are commonalities to the two problems, but typically what we see is identity theft comes in the nature that Hugo described.
I know you can't talk about intentions, but why don't the bureaus fix it? I've never been able to understand that. Like, it's not that hard to make sure that that data that's pulled down into the report belongs to the right person. But when they're using variants of like three data points that if it's similar to this, they think it belongs to that person, it seems like something they can solve. I mean, do you have any insights on why they just don't solve the problem instead of taking these people that kind of look like the person and putting on the report to actually matching to the specific person it really is?
I would say I think over the years they've gotten much better at it. I mean, more of our older cases involve clients who had a mixed merge with somebody who had a similar name. We had one client, their social security numbers were 1 digit apart. Okay, so eight out of the nine matched. The other one was 1 digit apart. So they say, well, close enough. They had similar names. Now, they lived in totally different states, but there was a significant matching criteria. But we don't see that much of that anymore. That's not as prevalent as it was, say, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I think they changed the Social Security system, which is interesting because social have a very specific of what the social actually is for, and part of it's that location. So when I'm from Indiana, which I am, and my dad's from Indiana, like naturally our socials are going to be similar. And then if we're born close together, they could be even more similar. But I think now it's more randomized, which probably would help for that. Why are people not able to get this fixed on their own? Like, why is there's this back and forth of trying to go to the bureau? Because I imagine people that come to you have tried to fix it on their own, and the bureaus won't fix it. So, what happens in this process where I guess the client has to come to you, meaning that the client that you're typically dealing with, have they tried to solve the problem on their own through normal disputing to the credit issuer and bureaus, failed, and then maybe tried again and again, and then they're basically hiring you to help fix the problem because they're not able to do it on their own? Is that a typical client that you're dealing with?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very consistent. And the problem is over the last 15 years or so, the credit reporting agencies have gone, rather than trying to fix problems, they've gone to preventing problems from getting off. There have been a lot of credit clinics that try to dispute legitimate data, and the credit reporting agencies think that everybody's a crook now, so they don't want to take anything off. The other part of it is that they've outsourced the dispute process to India, Costa Rica, Chile, other countries to save money. And the companies that they send this work to, they don't trust to actually do the hard work to determine, well, is this accurate? Is it not accurate? They don't trust them to do it, so they don't let them do it. And that's why it's never coming off.
So I think that that's interesting, and I wonder about that because if you deal with a credit clinic, a credit repair company, for example, the credit repair company will challenge basically everything that's derogatory on a report, typically. But then again, isn't it the consumer's right to have that done? Like if I have negative items on my credit report, then it's the credit issuer and the bureau's responsibility to make sure that that's accurate under the FCRA. So then, with that being the case, is it wise or is it not wise for me to basically try to challenge everything that's negative on that credit report, knowing that it's their responsibility to validate the accuracy of the information? Or am I better? Because, as a consumer, I don't know. Like, I can look at a tri-merge and I see that the data is different between the bureaus. Like, I can clearly see that, but I don't know what to dispute. So is it good practice to try to dispute everything, knowing that it's their responsibility to validate the data? Or is there an expectation that I really have specific knowledge of what I'm disputing and only dispute specific accounts?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the nature of the data being reported. If you're disputing because you don't feel the furnisher has sufficient supporting documentation, those disputes typically don't fare well, and they're more of along the credit clinic type disputes. If you're disputing a legitimate status of your account, it's not been charged off, or I paid a charged off, and they're not reporting it as I paid it, which we've seen, and those cases are pretty impactful because people are very vulnerable because they're trying to recover from a previous past problem, and then they pay down and pay back a charge off, and they're expecting to get the return on their investment, so to speak, from a credit reporting standpoint, and reported as a zero balance, starts to rehabilitate the credit file. This is a very vulnerable person, and if you pay $3,000 to clean up a repossessed vehicle that you had 2, 3 years ago, and then all of a sudden it still says $9,000. I mean, I would think that's a status dispute that fits into what are significant cases with vulnerable people that are trying to rehabilitate their credit.
You talk about impact. So, what do you feel, or what have you seen from your experience, are the most impactful negative items that affect somebody's score? Like you talk about status, that seems like one. So, when you look at an item and it's incorrect, what are the most impactful incorrect report aspects of that reported item that probably more adversely affect the credit score?
Well, you know, one of the things I think most consumers don't appreciate it or understand is it depends on how good your credit score is to begin with. So if you have an elite credit score of say 800, right? You've paid everybody for years, and all of a sudden a 30-day late shows up on your credit report. You know, you would think, well, that's not that big of a deal because I've been paying everybody for years. Oh, it's going to be huge. You could drop 100 points, 70, 80, 100 points just on one 30-day late. So, you know, if you're in the 600s or the high 500s and you get a collection that goes on it, well, I mean, that's salt in the ocean. You're not going to drop that much. So the first thing it really depends on is where is your credit score to begin with? How good is it?
And that's where people really professionals don't realize how vulnerable they are. We've had, you know, parents who guarantee a debt for a child and who think, oh, well, you know what, it's a $500 credit card that my kid didn't pay. But then they look at it and go, oh my God, my score went down so much because the way that the scoring models are tailored to find recent inaccuracies, credit utilization ratios, and things of that nature. So when you have a recent derogatory, just like Hugo was saying, it's going to be way more impactful to your credit score and your credit file, and it will affect you in ways you don't even imagine, from car insurance rates to if you suddenly want to do a refi, or we'd see it where people are shocked at how a relatively small dollar amount, the recency effect can just demolish a credit score.
Let's say they see the impact of the score, they see an inaccuracy on the item, they try to dispute it. What do you find are the biggest challenges from that point of them trying to fix it on their own and actually being able to get it resolved?
Well, the problem is that we do not see these problems getting solved by the credit reporting agencies. So you can bang your head against the wall as long as you want, but they're not going to fix it because they're not going to put the work into it. I mean, the statistics are around about 12 cents. That's what they're going to pay to reinvestigate your dispute. Well, how much of an investigation you think you're going to get for 12 cents, right? So they're not doing it in, you know, basically what happens is the credit reporting agency is going to take your dispute and they're going to send it to the furnisher. Let's say it's Verizon, right? And you say, hey, I didn't open up this account, or you got my bill wrong. If Verizon's not going to fix it, it's not going to get fixed. Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, they're not going to fix it. Whatever Verizon says, well, that's what they're going to continue to report. So it's not coming off.
But doesn't the FCRA put the burden on the bureaus of the accuracy of the information they're reporting?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
So the way the Bureau set things up is, and the case law describes it as a data conformity review. So as Hugo was saying, they don't want to trust the outsourced processor overseas to actually conduct a proper reinvestigation of inaccurate data. So what they do is engage in a data conformity review where the consumer really is caught in this endless circle where the data is inaccurate to begin with, which is why they're disputing. And then they send the letter to, I'll just name Equifax. They send the letter to Equifax. Equifax sends it out to their outsourced processor. They don't really investigate, read the letter, think about, hey, really, should this be on this consumer's credit report? They're going to send a small metro code. It's a 2 or 3 digit code to the furnisher, who is then going to send a response back electronically. And that's Equifax's investigation, in my opinion, where they're not going to really conduct a meaningful investigation of disputes and review a letter that says, hey, I did pay this account off, or here's a letter from my bank that says I wasn't really 30 days late and they took the money out of my account. I mean, some of these fact patterns can be shocking where you're like, what if the bank says that I paid within 30 days, why am I having a 30-day late status on my account? They say they took the money. And Equifax, they're just going to send it off to the furnisher and let the data conformity review happen and have it come right back to them. It's really outrageous.
It's a shocking process that they go through, and it used to be that there were some things you could do to get better results than others. Like if you disputed online, it used to go right into eOscar, and then eOscar would send it, assign the code and send it direct to the actual the creditor. Now and then, so then the idea was that you would want to manually mail it in. I mean, do things crazy like crinkle the letter up. I mean, anything to stop it from going into eOscar and even fax. So, what is it nowadays? Is there a better way to process a dispute to get better results, like mail versus fax versus doing it online, or it just doesn't matter?
Well, I think that mail matters.
Yeah.
I would not recommend doing an online dispute. You could do it just if you really want to get a dispute going quickly and you think it can be solved through the eOscar system. You could do it online. Written letters are really good for 2 reasons. One, you can sign it, and if you just put a wet ink signature on it and print your envelope off in your own handwriting, you're going to not look like a credit clinic. They should look at that. And they claim they look at it to see if a credit clinic's batch mailing things. Then they should look at a handwritten envelope and say, this is a real person who signed their letter and mailed it to me. I should maybe consider this one a little different than the batch envelope where I have 50 to 100 that look the same. So I think there are definitely still mechanisms to make your dispute stand out, attach supporting documentation, and make it obvious they didn't review it. I mean, some of these cases are pretty simple that if you just read the stuff, you could figure it out.
I try to do it on my own. I followed what you said to do. I mail the letter. I sign the letter. It's inaccurate. It's identity theft, or it's just flat out wrong. And they come back with that wonderful message that it's verified. I'm steaming. I'm upset. Maybe I dispute it again. Same thing happens. What do I do now?
At that point, you're going to have to get a lawyer because it's not coming off. And shockingly, guess when it always comes off? Right after we file suit. Right after we file suit. They can investigate 3 or 4 times. But it's unbelievable. They keep track of our lawsuits. They follow them. Okay, they haven't even been served yet. And they know, oh, well, we're going to take this one off now. Okay, that's when they come off. As soon as a lawsuit gets filed, it's shocking.
So, do you guys just file suit, or do you write them a letter first? Like, I would think I would be scared to death. Like, I've seen your reputation. It's a phenomenal reputation of helping people in these scenarios. So, like, do you even attempt to contact them first, or you just immediately file suit?
Well, by that time, the damage is done, right? So you've gone through this process, right? And you've tried to get credit and you can't get it because they won't take it off your credit report, and you've been frustrated by all that. Well, man, I can write them a letter, but they're not going to write me a check to cover your damages right away. They need a gun in the face, and they have a different attitude when they get a federal lawsuit.
I've been working with Hugo for 25 years, and I've rarely seen letters of work of any nature. But a deadline in a federal court lawsuit tends to get people's attention. So I'm skeptical on letters in general for that
And
reason.
you guys bring up a really good point because, people don't pull their credit just to pull their credit. I mean, I wish people would monitor their credit just to monitor it to make sure it's okay. They typically don't. They're typically using the credit when they're trying to buy something. There's a timeline. They're trying to buy a home. They're trying to buy a car. And so going through this process, it's a massive disruption to their life because they're usually using it for a pretty significant purchase. So in that case, they come to you, the damage is done, you're then filing suit. And then what's I don't know if there's a typical result, but what do you oftentimes see when a consumer then comes to you, you file suit? Like what happens? Is damages, do they give damages? Or are they just removing the item from the credit report? Like what kind of things typically happen once a suit is filed?
Well, we take these cases on a contingency fee basis, so we don't get paid by the client. Most of the clients can't afford the amount of legal fees that it's going to take to get to the end of the game. The other thing about the Fair Credit Reporting Act that is very, very helpful to consumers is there's a provision for if you win on behalf of your consumer, they have to pay your legal fees. And the legal fees in these cases are often more than the amount of the damages we're talking about. So that's the impetus for the credit reporting agencies to get the cases settled sooner rather than later, because they know if they're going to litigate this thing through summary judgment or even go to a trial, I mean, there could be $500,000 to $1 million in legal fees between the two firms, taking it all the way. It's
Sure.
expensive.
And I love that you brought this up because it was my next question. So if I come to you and here's my problem, I'm able to meet with you for free to consult, tell you what's going on, supply to you whatever it is that you require or request. Then you look at it and you say you have a case here, and at that point, it doesn't cost me any money out of pocket. I'm being able to tap into your experience, which is vast. I mean, you guys have a lot of really phenomenal experience in this area, and then you're able to help me through it. My attorney fees are covered, whether I win or I lose, and then I may win potential damages, and then the damage to my credit report is potentially fixed. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
To me, one of the first steps when we get involved in the lawsuit is let's take a look behind the scenes. What did happen when it was outsourced? What parts of the act did they follow? What is it really egregious? I mean, we'll see instances where they don't even send the electronic notice. They get the letter, and for whatever reason, the person just says it's not even on your credit file. We're not even going to send it out when it's clearly on there. So those are aggravating factors. The client's distress, I like to say that I can feel it in their voice. Like when I talk to someone on the phone and they're trying to buy a home and they can't, and they're being, they feel like they've done everything they can do. It's really impactful. And so Hugo and I are very careful in the cases that we do select. And I mean, we really have lucky. We have great clients. I love all of our clients. And, these are significant problems, significant life events. Babies are born, houses can't get bought. I mean, these are problems that are significant distress damages that are corroborated by circumstances and events that match with the consumer's life.
What should I be doing to tee up the perfect case for you guys? I'm sure people come in frustrated, upset, try to hire you. They haven't done things correctly to be even to get to a point where you can come in. Maybe you have to have them go back and do things a certain way to be able to have an actual case. So, what should I be doing on my end to make sure that I'm doing everything in my dispute properly? To then know that if they're doing their part wrong, I can come to you and you guys are like, this, you did everything exactly the way we would want it up to this point where we're involved.
Well, as Tom said, we find that sending a written dispute letter with documentation and backup is the best way, because now you explain to them, look, this isn't mine, and here's the proof, right? Here's what I have. It's funny. We see more identity theft of related people than we do of unrelated people. So it's parents, it's children, it's people who are actually related that are stealing somebody else that they know's identity. Those are the disturbing cases. When your mom says, "Hey, I'm going to take out a student loan in your name, and I'm not going to mention it, and I'm going to pay it back," but they never do. And then student gets out of school, and they're like, "Whoa, what's this?" Because mom never paid it back and said sorry.
Right. Documentation is key. The better the dispute, the more detailed the dispute, the better the case will ultimately be. And you got to be truthful to the extent of,
That's key.
the the system is entirely set up to punish the innocent and find the people that are lying. So you can't play into the narrative that they already have, they being the credit reporting agencies. So, I mean, they'll mark you credit clinic right on I've seen it on files. They'll write credit clinic right into the file. So I guess there's a little bit of an element of when you bring a dispute, be as accurate and clear as you can and be as factually descriptive of what's wrong and with your supporting documentation. And you are the innocent victim and you're the good guy. So just show you're the good guy. That's what I say. Because there really is no excuse for not taking these things off. Even if there's a dispute over the underlying finances of a situation, there's civil courts. The furnisher could obviously just sue for $700 in a court of your jurisdiction, and then you could explain to a judge why you don't owe the money. But they don't want to do that because they know it's easier to hold your credit hostage and to put a $700 collection on your credit account. And you go, oh, well, what am I going to do? Do I really want to buy this house? I'll just pay that $700 that I don't really owe and move on, which unfortunately some people do. But, it's not fair. I mean, not to, cry about fairness, but it isn't fair. And it's the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So, document, dispute, and protect your rights.
And keep your documents. keep records.
Yeah, and the sad thing about what you just said is that that actually can hurt your credit more. Like if I have that collection and I pay it off, then I'm updating like the data blast activity on that account, at least what I've seen historically. And that can actually hurt my credit. So I mean, literally what you're describing is 100% accurate. Like I could try to do the right thing and pay that account off and actually hurt my credit more than if I wouldn't have paid the thing off. I mean, it is the most backward system I've ever seen.
Yeah, and one of the other things is you owe a debt collector, right? The debt collector says you owe me $1,000, but if you want to pay me 300, I'll mark it as paid for the 300. And they think, okay, well, I'm going to pay the 300, and now it's going to go to a zero balance. It is, but it's going to report as paid less than full balance due, which is seriously going to negatively impact your credit. So if you take that deal, usually if it's tens of thousands of dollars, okay, that's probably a pretty good deal. But if it's only a couple $100, pay the whole thing and get it zeroed out. Don't let it go less than full balance due. That's really bad.
Yeah, I just haven't seen too many positive things from collection companies where it goes well for a consumer to deal with them in a lot of cases. So, what should somebody be doing? So, let's say I come in, I dispute the account. I've done everything you said. I've mailed the dispute. I've got detailed account of what took place. That's accurate. I've included supporting documentation. I've signed it. Do I just do it once and then come to you, or is there other steps beyond that one dispute that I should be doing before it makes sense to come to you guys?
Well, I think personally, more disputes are always better. I mean, they will point, they being the credit reporting agencies. I'll just try to put my credit reporting lawyer hat on. I don't like that hat, but they'll come up with anything to defend the case. So they say, well, you only disputed once. How bad could it have been? So like for my money, I would dispute until every time somebody said something that was inaccurate about my name, it's my name, it's inaccurate, and I'm going to dispute that until you take it off and you follow the law. And that's just my personality. I'm tougher like that. And disputes matter to the credit reporting agency lawyers. So I think it matters to us that you keep disputing. And then, I don't personally think that it should matter, but I think it does.
And it matters to judges. Judges will go, oh, well, you only disputed it once, and then they took it off 6 months later, how bad could it be? I mean, they just sometimes don't appreciate how bad it is for these consumers.
And it goes back to victim blaming. They're going to like, well, you really didn't try that hard. You only sent one letter out. What you could have done more. I mean, when these cases get defended, they get defended in a traditional fashion, and part of that tradition, unfortunately, has been victim blaming. So they will say, "Oh, you should have done more. Why did you leave your ID in your house so your son could steal it?" I mean, it's amazing what they can come up with when they're defending a case. So.
Do you guys do much with disputing or fighting like LexisNexis?
We've had a couple of LexisNexis cases.
Yeah.
Um, that's more in the employment background area of credit reporting. Um, that's a whole different, that could be another half-hour discussion.
I'm
Because
gonna have you guys back to have that conversation.
I mean, short answer for criminal records are sloppy. And part of it is the clerk's office isn't designed to retain data to match it to everybody else. So, you go matching names and an address, they might not even have a date of birth in the file. They could, some of them do, but when people go to pull a LexisNexis report, you're going to see, the Wild West of what's matched. I mean, you talked about matching algorithms earlier. It's even less, I think, in the employment in LexisNexis background area. So.
Yeah, and I might want to have you guys back to talk about that because there's things about LexisNexis I don't understand. Like, you have 10 years to have public record on your credit report, but yet LexisNexis has it on there indefinitely, but yet they're a credit reporting agency. There's just a lot of things like that that I'm not sure of. So it's a whole other discussion for another day. But what should we be doing proactively? Monitoring our credit? How often should we be looking at it? Like, what is the advice? Because the best attorneys like you guys, the best attorneys I've ever talked to say, do this to avoid the problem. So what should we be doing to keep an eye on our reports or to try to avoid these problems before they even occur?
Well, one of the problems that we've run into recently is Experian is getting people to sign up for their app. What's the name of it?
CreditWorks.
CreditWorks, okay? And people think, oh, well, I'm going to get a free copy of my credit report or something. They end up signing up for this CreditWorks. And what they don't know is in the documentation that you click through that nobody read, in those 70 pages, it includes a arbitration clause. And while you agreed to arbitrate with CreditWorks, they're affiliated with Experian, and next thing you know, you're going to arbitration. So you have to be very careful about who you're working with and what you're doing. So if you see anything that says CreditWorks, get off it. And a lot of these credit reporting agencies, this is a good portion of their income. This is where they're making money selling these credit reports and things. So there's annualcreditreport.com, and you're entitled to one free credit report from each of the three bureaus every year. So, and that is a really good one, and it's free. So if you did like your annual checkup, and if you want to spread it out, you could do it every 4 months with, Equifax this month, TransUnion 4 months from now, Experian in the next 4 months, and keep that rotation going. And you don't have to pay anything for it.
And what I tell my friends and family is typically like your birthday is a good starting point for what Hugo was saying. So if you get one free credit report, and it might even be more frequently since COVID, I don't recall exactly when they took that off. But so if you start on your birthday and say, all right, on 16th, I'm going to get Equifax, and then you wait 4 months, and on the 16th, you get TransUnion, you're going to see a periodic snapshot enough where you should be able to catch something, vis-a-vis identity theft. We want to check your addresses to make sure there's no addresses you don't recognize, inquiries, the hard inquiry section for who's pulling your credit. These are, the red flags of identity theft. If you live in Indiana and you suddenly see inquiries in Maine, a Maine Financial or Maine Federal Credit Union or whatever it is in Maine, you're like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Why would I have a Maine address and Maine inquiries? This isn't me. And then you really need to start thinking about, I got a problem. But other than that, typically it's okay. The one thing I would say, people seem to be worried about data breaches a lot. We haven't seen a lot of data breach clients. I think it's because, from what I understand, national actors, they're stealing data to on the larger scale to like look for people to bribe in the government and things like that. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about data breach as much, but definitely keep an eye on your inquiries in your address section to look for identity theft. That's what you can do to be proactive, in my opinion.
Don't freak
Guys,
out.
go ahead, you go.
I would just say don't freak out about it. I mean, look, if you can find a good lawyer that can help you, you're going to get your problem solved. Oh, we fix these problems, and people make a lot of money. I mean, these cases are worth a lot of money. So, we get people that call us and they're just all totally freaked out, and I get it. But, if you hire a decent lawyer that knows what they're doing in this area of the law, your problem's going to get solved. If you're the victim identity, you're going to get it fixed. Okay. It's coming off your credit report. That's the easy part. The easy part is for us is getting it fixed. The hard part is getting them to pay the right amount of damages to compensate the consumer and pay our legal fees at the end of the day. That's the hard part.
Guys, I've loved having you on. You have such a phenomenal reputation in the space. Honestly, it's been a true honor to be able to spend some time with you today. And there's so many other things that we could cover, and I'd love to ask you. But a lot of people that are watching this that have questions or want to learn more or are dealing with this and suffering and want to contact you guys to be able to help with some kind of remedy, where should they go? What action should they take?
Our website is yourfaircreditlawyer.com. There's a contact us page. We are a boutique law firm, so if you pick up the phone, I'm happy to talk to you. And I like talking to people and seeing what their problems are. You can fill out an email submission form if you're more comfortable. Some people are more comfortable with, establishing contact email first, but let's just call up and tell us what your story is, and then let us hear what's going on and see if we can help you, because we enjoy helping people.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Hey, thanks, Ty.
Thanks, Ty.
All right, so listen, if you're watching this, you make sure that you go to yourfaircreditlawyer.com. If you go to yourfaircreditlawyer.com, you can get an overview of the firm. You can learn more about these guys as well. You can also learn a little bit more about the areas they practice, the areas that they can help you. You'll see a lot of success stories of the cases that they've been successfully won, and you see testimonials there as well. Plus, they have a blog that's really cool and educational about a lot of topics that we just have not had a chance to talk about. You can even access them on their social channels right there as well. So make sure you go to yourfaircreditlawyer.com. Look, this is a big disruption to your life. I mean, having negative credit issues can impact your ability to do everything from the credit cards you get, from the cars to the mortgages. But it's not just getting approved, it's the rates and terms you'll pay. Like if you look at the math of how much more money you're going to pay on these things, having one damage to your credit versus not having damage, it's substantial. I mean, substantial. So don't fall into that trap. If you're having problems with your credit, follow the steps that these guys talked about today. Tom and Hugo know what they're talking about. They mapped out exactly what to do. But if you've done the right things and you're still being treated unfairly, make sure you go and talk to them at yourfaircreditlawyer.com. Thank you very much for tuning in. Take care. Have a great day.